Hi everybody, it's the Week in the Tackle podcast, the podcast where we get together on a weekly basis and tackle things that we think are interesting from the world of football and or soccer. I added a bit at the end, it was too much. I'm Tom Rennie. Alongside me is MLS legend, top broadcaster, Brian Dunny. Yes, that is Botex Dunseth. How are you, mate? You all right?
Yeah, I'm doing great, Rennie. Got back from a long trip to Orlando. Got to cover Orlando City against Atlanta United. 3-0 winners. My former teammate, Oscar Pareja, they're flying. Marco Pasalic, fantastic goal. He's really settled down, the Croatian international, on that right-hand side of the attack, replacing Facu Torres, who last year had like 14 goals, 9 assists. I think they're going to be a real contender in the conversation for the Eastern Conference. Atlanta United and Ronny Deila in real trouble right now. I know they're missing Latte Loth because of suspension and thinking about Gregerson and Williams and Mayumbo because of injury, but they look a shell of themselves. And right now, between Miranchuk as well as Miggy Almiron trying to figure out who is the number 10, some significant concern considering they spent roughly $50 million in the transfer market. So Carl Robinson, Kenny Miller, Ronny Deila, they got to get that sorted out sooner rather than later. But I got a bone to pick, Rennie. My flight home. You know, sometimes I don't sleep great in hotels. No. Usually I do, but for some reason this year, I don't know. Something's up.
You're
so
at weekends. You're working weekends in major cities and hotels. It's all just people
traveling
out
all
for the
over.
weekend. Yeah. It's tough to sleep.
And there's knuckleheads rolling in at 3 a.m., you know, in the hotel. And, you know, by the way, it's a huge difference between carpet and like wood floors in your hotel room because like if the wood goes out the door, then you're taking all the sound in the door. Whatever. It's just dynamics I think about.
If you're designing a hotel, think about the sleep of your guests. It's the most important thing.
Carpet kills a lot of sound. Anyways, get on the plane. This guy and his daughter.
But if it's a hotel where a murder might happen, I suppose they would want a wood floor. So it depends on what hotel you're staying in. These are top quality hotels, right?
Yeah. No.
What a white clean surface for
Hilton's
for Patrick Bateman. Anyway, carry on.
I get on the plane and I just want to go to sleep. You know, I've got my turn the sound thing off where it's just noise canceling all over. I'm listening to my music. I'm downgrading myself to get ready to go to sleep. It's about a 4:25. 4 hours and 25-minute flight back to Salt Lake, headwinds. And this guy and his daughter sit down and she's adultish. You know, he's older than me. And they just start complaining about the sister.
Oh, no.
And like for 4 hours, it was like the same 4 stories just getting regurgitated talking about the sister. And
what'd she do? Can you tell us one? What'd she do?
No, I was doing my best. Like I was on like frequency mode in my.
Was she sleeping with the
app.
sister's husband or something?
And, like I don't like being in the water, and she should have known that. And I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna lose it. I was walking through scenarios where there was like assault on my mind at this point, and I was like, I can't do it. But like everybody's like, well, everyone's looking at me. Everyone's looking at me. Everybody's looking at me like, dude, I feel so sorry for yourself. And I was like, if you're hearing it, like it's as bad for you as it is for me. And like I was getting off the plane at the end, and the guy like in front of me is just like, sorry, Tim. But yeah, man, like if by the way, just like a word to the wise, if it's like a 7 a.m. flight, shut the up.
Shut the up.
Sorry, Tim.
Sorry,
like
Tim.
Shut the up. Sorry, Tim. Like people want to sleep. Like people gotten up early. Like let them like halfway through like you want to start a friendly conversation. Do it halfway before the flight or halfway into the flight. If you started before the flight, cut it off on takeoff. Like let people fall asleep. Like give them an hour. Like and don't like leave the shutter up where like the sun's coming in, smashing people in the eyes. Yeah. And by the way, don't be a filthy animal that takes their shoes off.
Oh,
like puts their foot up on the wall or whatever. Like.
Buy flight shoes. Can I just say that? Buy flight shoes. No one thinks Crocs are attractive. No one does. However, they're appropriate flight shoes with socks. True. And they're very comfortable and they're very loose fitting. It's not a fashion show at the airport. Don't wear your smart shoes or uncomfortable shoes you feel like you might need to take off. Just think ahead. You knew you were getting a flight. You don't get a flight by accident.
Yep.
You know?
Good point. Yep. And one more thing before I'm at it, before I'm finished.
Yes.
Stay out of the fucking fast lane if you're doing 65. Sorry, Tim.
Yes. And also, don't cut your grass before 9 a.m. Never do that. Never do that. True. If you do, I've had neighbors do that, and I've said, "Sorry, mate, it's 9 a.m. You got to shut that off." Like after 9, it's fine. It's still too early, but it's fine. Yeah. But if you're mowing your lawn at 7 a.m., I'm assuming you want me to burn your house down. I don't know. I'm assuming that's what you want. I don't know.
Yeah, no lies detected.
I have 2 brief complaints for you before we get into the weekend. Number 1 is that I went to see Phantom of the Opera on Friday, which was...
Were you forced to?
No, I quite enjoy. I like a musical. I like a stage show. I live in one of the
Yeah,
greatest cities in the world. So
you do. You do.
it was my wife's birthday, and I had no plans on the Wednesday
Gosh.
for the birthday on the Friday. And she
Oh
was like,
boy.
"What are we doing?" And I was like, "I'm so lucky we don't live in Crewe. Otherwise, I'd be buggered right now." So it went to the National Gallery, which is amazing. Some Van Gogh, some Rembrandt. It's an incredible place to go. It's a free visit if you're ever in London. Highly recommend it. Trafalgar Square, brilliant place to visit. If you can get past all the tourists trying to take a photograph of the sunflowers there are photos and prints you can buy. Look at it. Look at it. You're there with it. You can buy a print outside. They sell duffel bags with the sunflowers on. Very annoying. But anyway, I went to see Phantom of the Opera. Loved it. However, I didn't understand any of it. Like, why are they suddenly underwater? Why is Phantom on the water when he's apparently haunting the theatre? Makes no sense. Why would someone buy a theatre that is already haunted? Doesn't make sense. Why doesn't the rich guy who bought the theatre just knock down the theatre and build a new theatre? He was rich enough to buy a theatre. It doesn't make sense. The main girl, falls in love with Phantom of the Opera because of the quality of his music, and yet he writes a musical called Don Juan, which is so sorry, Tim. Nobody wants to perform the opera in the second act of the show. It doesn't make sense. So she falls in love with a ghoul who gives her the gift of music, but he can't write an opera. None of it makes sense. Tremendous fun. And I have literally been walking into rooms for 3 days saying, "The Phantom of the Opera is here." But anyway, very annoying.
What about the scene at the graveyard?
There's no reason for the scene. She's at her father's graveyard. We never meet the father. He's never referenced. And suddenly I'm at the father's graveyard. And suddenly the Phantom and the non-Phantom man who loves her are both there. How do they know where her father's graveyard is?
It's a duel.
They'd never met her when the father died. But now, anyway, football. That's it.
True
Football
love.
chat. So Liverpool are Premier League champions. We knew it was coming. What a weird segue that was. Speaking of father's graveyard, the season's dead.
Jeez.
I don't know if it works. So they're champions. They won the league this weekend in typical Liverpool fashion. One of the safest bets of the weekend, which I had at 9-1, was Tottenham score first and Liverpool win. It's come off like 7 times this season, so I'm very much enjoying putting that bet on with regularity. And look, Tottenham are always going to crumble, right, lads?
Yeah.
It's Tottenham. So I thought we could take a look less at the weekend because it sort of was a kind of typical Liverpool win in its way. But I'd love your review. I'll give mine as well of like them as champions, because I think the first and most important thing to say is that like it hasn't been a vintage Premier League season. The challenges have all crumbled and all that. That's absolutely true. But you can only beat what is put in front of you, and they've beaten everyone. They've lost only 2 games this season. There's 4 to go, and they've currently lost 2, and they're on track for 94 points. So maybe upon reflection, they are going to be great champions, just not in a particularly vintage season.
Yeah, I mean, I did the numbers, and after the 2020 COVID breakup season, which they lift the trophy, and it was obviously a letdown because it was an empty Anfield. Klopp was second position with 92 points. 2022-23, fifth position with 67 points. That season, they were 22 points off the pace of Man City. And last year, third position on 82 points, same points taken, and obviously 4 matches remaining. The excitement level, if you're a Liverpool fan, the consistency of performance has been outstanding. But the hiccups with the 14 draw or 10 or so draws from Arsenal, Man City having the worst 4 months that we could have ever possibly imagined, even worse than what we could have ever even tried to describe. Chelsea still wobbling, trying to figure out who they are, and the disappointment of what Tottenham and Manchester United have been this season. And then watching an Aston Villa side trying to navigate both Champions League and Premier League, and then a surprise out of nowhere with Nottingham Forest all of a sudden being in the conversation for competition for spots in Europe. What Arne Slot has done has been extraordinary. I mean, outside of that 10-day window of losing to PSG and losing to Newcastle in the Carabao Cup final, and credit to Eddie Howe and Newcastle, because they righted everything that was wrong the year before when they lost to Manchester United, and PSG right now is just a juggernaut with Luis Enrique with the way that they're playing. It's hard to poke holes into what Arne Slot has done. We talked about stepping into the shadow of Jurgen Klopp, where this front-facing genetic DNA kind of relationship that the fans had with Jurgen Klopp it was never going to look the same. And it's different. But I think Arne Slot has figured out a way verbally to manage some really tough decisions and situations, and specific to, the Mo Salah impromptu interview process where he complained about his contract negotiations, dealing with obviously Virgil van Dijk being in a similar boat, and Trent Alexander-Arnold. I thought he was brilliant in the way that he managed that. He has upsold all of these players. He's made them better. He's tweaked a style that, we keep saying this heavy metal football, but they were more than that. They were heavy metal, was slowing the game down. But I think he's made players better. Gravenberch in particular, Szoboszlai in particular. I think he's made McAllister better with the way that they play. And he managed big moments in which, we thought other teams maybe would have crumbled at certain stages. So I don't know where this kind of falls in line with like the Shankly to Paisley years, because I wasn't around for that. I wasn't interested in that. But certainly Jurgen Klopp to Arne Slot. And this is just the original, I guess, the beginning of an evolution of what we're seeing underneath Arne Slot. And we'll see if they've got 150 million to spend. We'll see how they trim the fat, 5 to 7 players going out, and ultimately competition for spots at the start of next season. At the end of the day, it's been extraordinary. And to see those fans outside the stadium this weekend, whoever the Everton fan is that swapped all the cover, I mean, I know we'll get to that at some point. Spectac, Dunsethery through the roof. But then to see Anfield, and our friend Keith Costigan was off at the weekend, and he spent a boatload of money to get over there to be in the stadium to watch that game. To see the way they responded after Solanke's goal, it champions performance throughout the course of the season. And outside of that game against Nottingham Forest at home, they've been really, really, really good. So credit where credit's due. A phenomenal year, and still 12 points remaining. We'll see how strong they end it.
A few follow-ups on that, because we could go loads of places. We won't be able to do it all today. We'll have a few weeks to reflect on Liverpool winning the title with 4 or 5 weeks of the season left. The flares thing, let's do that now, because I love the flares thing so much. So again, we don't know how true this is. I'm sure there are reporters out there looking for verification on this story, but you may have noticed. So if you saw some of the shots the weekend, maybe some of you listening were there, as our friend Keith Costigan was, as Danny mentioned. Outside of Anfield, there was a sort of street party around the streets, a couple of wide areas where you can all get together. Also, like inside Anfield as well, obviously. And there's this story doing the rounds. This comes from Tony Blueblood, Leslie Field on social media, and says, my mate's just texted me. Maybe I should do the voice. It's kind of written in the voice.
Yeah, do it.
My mate's just texted me there. He bought 10,000 blue flares and spent the last 4 weeks taking the blue labels off them and putting the red labels on them. I hope he sells their fucking lot. Sorry, Tim. I'd lost it a bit at the end there. I've got great impressions. But essentially what happened is a fan apparently bought all the flares he possibly could, the blue flares, put them on sale in the Liverpool area and changed the labels from blue to red. And so when fans lifted the flares up, expecting it to be a red flare, there was blue smoke. And I saw this doing the rounds the night before the game. But if you watch the coverage of the outside area, there are blue flares that people are setting
and inside
off.
the stadium. And inside the stadium as well. Yeah. And guys are like trying to kick it under chairs, like, oh no, and like trying to boot it under somebody's chairs.
So good.
Amazing. I mean, the Dunsethery is so strong. I love it.
Absolutely amazing. And just like broadly, you're a Man United fan, of course, and there's a big rivalry there. Yeah. And I'm not a Liverpool fan. I don't wish them sort of one way or the other, though I don't have much dislike for them beyond the 2006 FA Cup final, but whatever. He did press Scaloni. Carragher chased Scaloni, and I'll never forgive him. But away from that, like, I am a cynical person, as you know, and I'm trying not to be here. And, my whole thing is like, I want different teams to win. Every 5 years you can win a trophy, and I'd be happy for you, whoever you are. I'd be delighted if Tottenham won the Europa League. People just do not believe me when I say it, but I would be real happy because they don't. Because they never win anything, and they are sort of...
you like Amorim more than you like Big Ange Postecoglou.
Well, I don't like him very much. They're both going to be sacked soon anyway. But so anyway, on the Liverpool thing, I try and be a bit like, oh, they won this, I won that. But I think there was a real sense of like, winning the title was a massive thing for Liverpool in a way that I don't think it was as big a thing for City to win their 4th in a row, which was kind of the last title we sort of looked at. Not to disparage the City fan. It's like the Celtic thing. So Celtic won their 55th title this weekend. No one gives a flying Sorry, Tim,
If
because
Dundee United wins it, it's like it changes
exactly.
everything. Yeah,
Like,
no, you're right. You're spot
so,
on.
and like, even though it's Liverpool and it's their 20th title and they're technically the most successful side in kind of English
Yeah.
football history, along with Man United, in our lifetimes, that era of domination ended before I was born. And when you were a very young man, you weren't even injecting yourself with the Botox then. You were naturally young. Little Sugar Ray,
You had hair
I did have, I mean, I wasn't even born. So if I had hair in utero,
in
maybe, I
utero.
guess.
Yeah.
In utero. So, like, I did sort of feel happy for a lot of Liverpool fans there. And as well, because maybe it's because we were all sort of damaged by COVID as well. It was a horrible
Yeah.
time for everybody. But,
Yeah.
like, I was working on the game when they lifted the trophy at Anfield and the Hendo Shuffle and all that. But I was in studio. Right, you couldn't. Everyone was in studio. Nobody was there. There was no crowd there, and they
Yeah.
stage managed it really well. But this just it did
They
feel
did as
different.
best they could.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did the best they could.
But this did
It's
feel
gonna feel
different. It did
different.
feel
Yeah.
special, and there
Yeah.
was something even for a cynic. And like it annoyed me when I read then the writer was like, they're gonna do the same parade they did when they won the Champions League in these 2 years. And I thought, okay, off, it's over now. Sorry, Tim. But like at least at the time, on the day, watching the coverage, Danny, I did feel for the people a
Yeah.
sense of like, yeah, I'm pleased for him. Good on him.
Yeah, no, listen, and again, I know there's a complexity in the conversation because I am a Man United homer. But strip away my allegiance to who I like. It's an amazing story, man. They've been fantastic, and we were all kind of just sitting back and wondering, well, Jurgen Klopp, the training facility, what he's done, the insane intensity and focus of how he was trying to build this team to be in a contender. By the way, 6 years ago on June 1st, it will be Liverpool's 2-0 win over Tottenham Hotspur in the final of the Champions League. I mean, and look at the consistency of competing, and similarly to the conversation we've had with Mikel Arteta and Arsenal, like any other period of time that's not Pep Guardiola and Man City and this insane spend that we're seeing with that success and the consistency of their success, probably both clubs, Arsenal and Liverpool, are looking at other titles in the conversation. Yeah. So for Arne Slot to step into that shadow to be able to adjust the pieces that benefit his and his system and to get the better out of the players, it has been incredible. So from Shankly to Paisley and from Klopp to Slot, I think without a shadow of a doubt, there is going to be these historical moments, and this parade is going to be one of those historical moments. So, congratulations.
Last bit on this, and then we'll move us on. I wanted to ask you just another bit more on the Klopp to Slot bit, because it was quite interesting how last year there was the famous Arne Slot, which was Klopp did in his speech on the pitch. Arne Slot then did the same thing back to Jurgen Klopp on the pitch at Anfield this weekend, which was really great.
Yeah.
And he spoke afterwards about the fact they've spoken a fair amount this season. They've kind of WhatsApped each other and they've had a few phone calls and conversations. Klopp had said previously, I'll try to be in Liverpool on the day, probably not in Anfield, though I'm sure he would have got a seat if he had wanted one. But, he was saying he wanted to be in the seat. I don't know whether he was. I've not seen that information as yet. But like the question is sort of twofold. Number one, how much do you think Jurgen Klopp was like, maybe I could have done one more year? Because everyone else has crumbled. I think Klopp's Liverpool would have won the Premier League this season. I mean, there's no way of proving that, of course, but with the consistency and the quality and the management and the crumble elsewhere, I think they would have won the league. They would, in hindsight, be the best to have won it, I think. But secondarily, what about that? The credit for Jurgen Klopp. Like, how much do you think he does deserve when you consider
a lot?
Apart from Chiesa, they bought nobody, and Chiesa don't play.
No, they do. I mean, and again, the credit fully is deserved by Arne Slot and his coaching staff, and the reorganization behind the departure of Jurgen Klopp. The infrastructure, scouting network, and however presidency or sporting directors or general whatever, it's all different in different locations, but there's a big change behind the scenes, right? People coming back to the club because this was going to be a new infrastructure. But listen, everything that was put together in the vision of Jurgen Klopp. And so I think we should acknowledge that there should be a certain amount of credit that goes to him for this group continuing to evolve and to be successful. Does he deserve all the credit? Certainly not. Does Arne Slot deserve as much credit as we can possibly give them? Absolutely. And ultimately, the players perform. And again, if we could run a real-time simulation, I'd like to go back even further to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer before Cristiano Ronaldo showed up, because I really like the direction. So if we're just going to recreate timelines, real-life simulations and timelines, can I go back and redo that one just to see where Man United would have ended up? But all jokes aside, listen, it's incredible, and congratulations, Liverpool. And it almost leaves me with that what if. Like there's a part of me that watches how unbelievably consistent and how often Arsenal fans were hate watching Liverpool to wait for them to make mistakes. Like, man, the 10 days away against PSG, home against PSG, Carabao Cup final, like this team was good enough to win the treble. Yeah. Absolutely good enough to win the treble. So, yeah. I mean, but again, I guess it all depends on your fan base. Like how do you generalize or make more popular Premier League trophy, Champions League trophy, Europa League trophy, like, that FA Cup trophy, Carabao Cup trophy, like all of those things have been prioritized by Liverpool fans. And it seems as if Premier League is absolutely the most important.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that was the target this season, and it's been easily achieved, well, in terms of the point differential to challengers anyway. We should both bring back David Moyes, I think. Let's move on to the FA Cup. I want to talk to you about the Nottingham Forest game. We'll maybe do a little bit of Palace later, because I think I'm going to put them forward as my hero of the week. But let's talk about the Nottingham Forest game, because I thought Forest would win this. And you look at that Man City team with Rico Lewis and O'Reilly and Kovacic and a bunch of kind of unsung players. No Haaland, no De Bruyne, no Rodri, obviously. The team's come out, Wembley Stadium. A bunch of City fans aren't there. It's 5,000-6,000 empty seats because of, finance. It's not cheap to do it, and they just couldn't sell their allocation. I don't want to be overly critical of that because, this is real people's real money, and real people didn't have the money. If the tickets were a tenner and the travel was free, they would have sold it out, right? So let's not go too hard on that. But, there is the other narrative that it was the same for Forest, but it's a, maybe a generational thing for them, and they'll pay it. But
it's different, yeah.
But I do think it's more of like everyone should be able to go, and it should sell out. And if it don't sell out, the organisers need to be criticised a bit, certainly the cost.
100%.
But anyway, it all just felt like it was set for Forest, the game. And then within 90 seconds or so, Rico Lewis has scored that goal. It's a very unlike Forest goal to concede. The first half really got away from them, and City could have won it comfortably. And I suppose I've got two questions on this, really, and I want to get your view on. Number one, just give us a word on Man City winning the game, because that will be underreported by me, because Man City win is like, dog bites man. I'm looking for man bites dog, which is more interesting.
Visually.
And like man bites dog here is Forest conceded a rubbish goal.
Yeah.
Nuno does tinker, but part of this tinkering this weekend was to not start Elanga, which in hindsight was probably a big error. And then, was it big occasion? Was it bad coaching? What happened here? Why did City beat Forest?
Well, I think Man City's back. I think they found their mojo. These last couple of weeks, I think you're seeing the restored confidence of a team that was really wobbly there for the better part of December through March. So for me, if we would have predicted at the beginning of the season, right? No games played, semifinal, Wembley was going to be Nottingham Forest, Man City. You're like, man, that's a hell of a cup run for Nottingham Forest, without any knowledge of the consistency of performance that they've had in the Premier League. Now, they've had a couple of results in those back-to-back weeks in the Premier League action that popped them out of that very comfortable third place position, where 6 points at this stage of the season is a tremendous amount of distance. So I think we're probably what we saw, or what we're seeing with Nottingham Forest, is the pressure applied from what was an absolute Champions League spot a couple of weeks ago to now being really nervy for these final four matches. And again, I think a Man City team that is really pissed at themselves for how poor they've been in terms of consistency in the Premier League. I mean, I don't think there's any betting man out there that at this stage of the season wouldn't suggest that Man City won't hold on to that number 3 spot in the table. And this won't offset the disappointment of the season, but it's still an FA Cup trophy, right? So, and now knowing, and if we get to it, we get to it, but Palace passed an Aston Villa team that has just lost their legs, losing their legs and qualifying directly for Champions League. got dumped. Phenomenal response, an epic night at Villa Park against PSG. But now getting dumped by a Palace team that on paper you would have absolutely thought, based on this season, that they would put away. And they got thumped 3-0, which creates questions going forward for a perennial 9th to 12th place finisher. Is there more ambition? Is there going to be more money for the ambition of Oliver Glasner and company? But this was ruthless efficiency in really minute moments where City was able to probably utilize the experience that they have in big games and understand how to take advantage of those moments. And unfortunate for Nottingham Forest, because I believe, and I'm falling under this allure of Tom Rennie, that Nottingham Forest Crystal Palace FA Cup final would have been absolutely fucking extraordinary. Sorry, Tim. And unfortunately, that's not the case.
Yeah, it would have been a great cup final. City then will go into the Palace game as big favourites, and if they win it, it'll just be a little bit like, okay.
But United last year, I mean, they were huge favorites against Manchester United last year, and Erik ten Hag, smash and grab, ends up walking away with a trophy. So there's still some hope. Set pieces and maybe a big performance from Eze and Mateta could be the difference on the day. But yeah, I think everyone's going to recognize heavy favorites in City.
But just a quick follow-up on Forest, and then we'll do Palace, actually, because I've got a bit on them that I wanted to put to you. But, like, how much do you think? So they had no Ola Aina for the game. It's been pivotal for kind of everything they've done this season. He's been out injured on one side. But, like, what Nuno has done across this season is really interesting. And you go all the way back to the win at Anfield in August. Like, he is willing to put his best players on the bench and not have them on the field for 45, for 60, for 70 minutes, so they're on the field at the end. And he has got this philosophy. I hate that word. I'm sorry for using it. He's got this sort of thought process that like they have in rugby union. They have it in other sports too, but I don't really know many other sports. But like finishers. It's not substitutions, it's finishers. And it's like we spoke about in the past about maybe how Ronaldo could play to do 70 because he will come on for the last 5 for teams.
Messi, same way.
Yeah. Mikel Antonio will be doing it for West Ham in 15 years from now, I'm sure, in between car crashes. He's fine, so we can joke about it. But, like, maybe get the bus next time. That's what I'm saying, Mikel. Would have saved the season. Anyway, but, like, he does this thing where, like, he didn't start Alanga, and it wasn't that Alanga's been crap. It was because he thought, I want Alanga power
impact
at the end of the game.
Yeah.
Of course, it's all out the window when you concede in 2 minutes, right? It's the whole Mike Tyson, you've got a plan until you get punched in the face. They got punched in the face by Rico Lewis. But give us your thought on the fact they've done it so well this season.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, is that now an error? Because this was not a league game away at Brighton. This was an FA Cup semi-final. And if your best players aren't on the field, there's every chance that them, with their best players on the field, are going to beat us.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I can't even wrap my head around trying to prep for a game like this. Because as much as you know that Pep's set up and he's going to tinker, and he played more of like an odd 4-2-4 kind of setup at times.
It was what's his name? Open heart surgery. What was his name? Man United, German fella. I've gone blank. Rangnick.
Ralph Rangnick.
Austrian.
Yeah,
it was the Ralph Rangnick 4-2-2-2-2-2 formation.
Yeah. So you're always looking for tweaks and overloads and all these things where you can get your best players on the field. But yeah, again, I always joke like unleash the hounds is like the second half, like get all the big boys on the field. Because and I've specifically talked to managers and during our coverage as broadcasters about this. Is like, listen, man, there's something special about a guy whose ego is understanding that maybe he's not worthy of a starting spot, but like he's really, really important. And the psychology of being able to sit and watch the game and, have the exercise of if I get on the field, what am I going to do? And who am I going to target and all of these things? And then have the player profiles of, we're talking about speed and agility and technical ability, intelligence, and just strength and power and all these other things we use the superlatives to explain what we're seeing. And how there could potentially be a mismatch. I totally understand it. But again, there's, when we try to dig in, at the end of the day, if we keep it simple, stupid, kiss off this game, you're going to say it's still Pep, it's still Man City, it's still an extraordinarily talented group of players that are now like maybe a little bit like this, whereas maybe Nottingham Forest is a little bit like this at this stage of the season. But at the end of the day, I don't think anybody... No, maybe Marinakis and a little bit of Nuno, but I don't think there's anybody that can truly say that this season hasn't been extraordinarily successful for Nottingham Forest when
Yeah.
it's all said and done, when you dumb it down to like realistic expectations.
Yeah, and if they miss the Champions League, it'll be annoying for a while, but Europa League will be fantastic. They could
Yeah.
possibly win that. Conference League, I think they will win it. The Premier League team
Do
should
what
win it every
Aston
year.
Villa
So,
did. Yeah, just kind of like cruise up a little bit,
yeah.
take those steps.
Or do what West Ham did and win a trophy. Give that well.
That's true.
I hear
That's
it's quite
true.
fun.
How are they doing right now?
I don't know. It might come up later if there's time. Actually, let's do. I won't do the whole thing now, but as we're on topic, my hero of the weekend is going to be Crystal Palace because I think it's it's what they've done this season is genuinely really, really good work. And if you take away the opening 10 games of the season, I know you can't do that. You can't make Ole Gunnar Solskjaer a good manager. These things can't happen. But like
simulations, you can.
That virtual fight got a lot of people talking, Rack. But like, you take that away, they lost the league, say, and there wasn't a massive reinvestment. Ismaila Sarr's taken time to settle into the team. But across the season, you take that away, the body of work has been really, really good. The development, you want to talk about, Man United and West Ham and all Tottenham, they've got a way of playing, and the manager will say, it'll take time to develop this. It is going to take time. Crystal Palace might be the example you look at with the right purchasing and the right sorts of players and giving someone the patience and time to develop it. Because the way they played this weekend against Aston Villa, I know they had issues, which Danny alluded to earlier on, was brilliant. And even if you look at the Arsenal game last week in the league, where they'd struggled against Newcastle, they'd struggled against Man City, they're leaking goals, there's a bit of a lack of effort going on. Maybe players needed to rotate. Maybe they didn't have their eye on the ball in the Premier League, whatever it was. Maybe Mateta's not come back as good as he was before he got his ear cut off by the Millwall goalkeeper, all of that. And they have this sort of bounce back against Arsenal where you think, actually, they look quite competent here.
Yeah.
Like they've had a little tweak, they've had a little change. Everyone is just sort of just humming at 60%, just 70%, just getting there for this game. Yeah. And then the way they set up from Lacroix's development this season has been fantastic, and he is a Glasner and Glasner's people pick. They tried to sell Mark Gay last summer. Palace are a selling club. They do need to sell again this summer, but they managed to hold on to him because they said, well, it's 80 million or whatever it was, 60 million.
Yeah.
And Newcastle were like, 57 million, 58 million, 59 million. And they were just like, no,
too far.
The price is the price, bud. Let us know. We can keep him if you like. We're not in financial problems. Chris Richards, who has
developed.
Had some good moments and bad moments this season, was sent off a couple of weeks ago. It was fantastic in this game. I mentioned to you a couple of years ago when I knew some people on the Palace staff that they'd picked him out under Roy Hodgson as he's going to be the starting centre-half. They weren't bothered about some sales because they saw that development pathway. They see a £50 million player they can sell. In 2 years, which is, how they do it. But you add that to the smart buy of Adam Wharton for 20 million from Blackburn last summer. Kamada is a lieutenant for Glasner, and he's brought somebody who just knows how he plays inherently. The development of Mateta, I saw Mateta 2.5 years ago. His control was like a trampoline. And now he's one of the best strikers in the country. Eza and Sarr, the balance between the two, just like all coming together under a really smart manager over a tough period of time to deliver that sort of performance. And just like Danny, that goal at the end, the Ismaila Sarr third, which got it wrapped up, like you'd have experienced as a player and as a fan as well. Even at 2-0 up in the 91st minute, you still think you're going to lose.
Yeah.
You're still like, it's only going to take a corner or a deflection or a mistake or whatever, and we're not going to win this. So that bit, when Ismaila Sarr goes through and scores, I could sense like the second-hand elation that those Palace fans who would have thought they'd lose the whole way through, they were just like, wow, we're actually going to win this. And you could feel it. It was definitive. And it was just a great moment. A perfectly managed game, a perfectly run club to get to this position. It's frustrating because there's no money in Crystal Palace. They're never going to be. That they're going to have to sell off this team in the summer, and Glasner's going to go. They've got 5 games left with this group. So it just feels like a now or never moment, and I hope it's now for Palace.
Well, and that was going to be my question: is the ambition of the club and the amount of money that would be made available to really continue the evolution of kind of pushing. I mean, just looking at the table right now, Nottingham Forest, Aston Villa, Fulham, Brighton, Bournemouth, Brentford. Those are all clubs that have flirted with European competition, and we're still kind of waiting. Who's Newcastle United has seemingly planted their flag in that conversation of top 6. But as we kind of the evolution of top 7, top 8, who are the ones that are consistently pushing in this, nuclear arms race of spending. So for Glasner, for the club itself. Extraordinary circumstances to be in the FA Cup final, and hopefully for them, they can figure out a way to upend Pep Guardiola and Man City.
Yeah, no money at Palace, so they're all going to go. But enjoy the next 5 weeks, I guess, and then finish 12. Right, let's move on to... There's two things I wanted to put to you before we get to the rest of our heroes and villains. Let's do this Real Madrid thing, because I just wanted to get your view on this, because this is one of my personal pet peeves. And it is the unbearable arrogance of Real Madrid, which has always been there, right? They see themselves as...
A lot of teams have it, yeah.
No one's got it like this, mate. Like, they...
I was trying to be nice.
We haven't got... It's the podcast. It's fine. No one's paying for this. But like the unbelievable arrogance of the club has always kind of grated me. There are arrogant clubs out there, but there's no one like like Real Madrid, like Man City aren't, Man United aren't, even Liverpool aren't, even Barcelona aren't, I don't think. Because they believe the European Cup is theirs. And they don't just say that, they actually believe it. They believe it in their core, in their identity, in their bones. And of course they don't. But at the same time as believing they own the European Cup, they're trying to create a European Super League because it's all so unfair and we hate it all. So they won't even let themselves be celebrated as UEFA's most successful team because they want to. They feel like they're being treated unfairly by a competition they've won more than anyone else and get normally advantageous draws and seeding and whatnot. But fine, it's all against them. That's relatively harmless, right? And that's just a case of sort of preference, whether you like them or not. But this campaign against referees is insane.
That's wild.
And like we see it now in kind of wider society that conspiracy theorists are now not the fringe, they are the mainstream. They are the people in charge of things. Some would say the people that half a country might vote for, like the nutters, right? Who really have they just have no grip on reality. And when you convince yourself in your own sort of ecosystem of a thing, you believe it as fact, whether there is proof or not. And like, I'm happy for a conversation about competence when it comes to referees, but if you allege conspiracy or worse, fraud, then you need to prove it or you need to shut it. And like the conspiracy against referees from Real Madrid is insane. Like they've sent letters recently to complain about referees. It's like a crusade. They've if you watch Madrid's TV channels after games, they talk about referees having decisions like they're crimes and they should be arrested. And they have this campaign endlessly about like, oh, this person comes from this place and so they hate us and they hate Madrid and they're a Barca fan or they're a Sevilla fan. Or
it's almost like if they could only hire Mark Clattenburg.
Well, steady. But like they wrote a letter, I think in February, where they alleged that like the federation and the government were corrupt and the system of appointing referees was discredited. Of course, I didn't really prove a great deal of this. Like there are things that you're a bit like.
Yeah, Barcelona's been accused of manipulation behind the scenes. I mean, there's Spain. La Liga is an interesting animal, right? Yeah. But you know what I thought was brilliant about the situation is that the referees came out publicly. They acknowledged what was happening. You could see the emotional toll it was taking on them. Because the main referee was talking about how his son was basically verbally accosted at school and being told that his dad was a cheat. That's got to be devastating as a father in any walk of life. But I actually thought I thought he managed the game really well.
Yeah.
I mean, all the threats of them not playing the game and whatever in Seville, at the end of the day, I thought they benefited from the referee on two specific occasions. The one where the ball came off the arm, where the defender was going to ground. Yeah. That could have been called in other circumstances against them.
Is this why they do it, Danny?
And then the sending off.
So they get that sort of decision. Like, would that come into their mind?
That's the idea, is that there's a certain amount of stress that's being put on the referees to not make the calls because you're already in the pocket of the opponent. So listen, I thought there's a couple things. The game itself was extraordinary. I mean, wherever you fall in line, Barca fan, Real Madrid fan, not a fan, just want to watch a high level game. These two teams hate each other. These players hate each other. It's fun to watch. It's almost a throwback to what we're talking about, what's missing at times in the Premier League. Like these two teams really hate each other. And so there's no loyalty between like club and country. This is just pure club right now. And it had that whole like Sergio Ramos, Carlos Puyol kind of like, PK hatred for one another. But the game itself, it's moments, right? It's just these minuscule moments in time. And, you watch Luka Modric play that ball to Brahim Diaz and Had Jules Koundé, and I was using this for my son yesterday, actually in the car this morning. I was like, Jules Koundé, anticipatory position. He jumps, he reads the pass. Brahim Diaz, more reaction. Instead of going to the ball, he's allowing the ball to come to his left foot to then hit a transition moment in the attack and flare out that side. And that's it's not Jules Koundé hits a dime and finds far post side net. It's like this one moment where Jules Koundé, can I pick this ball off? I'm going to go for it. I'm going to anticipate it. And he does so. And that's the difference between the ball hitting the back of the net and a chance going the opposite direction. So the game itself was extraordinary. The red cards, there's going to be a conversation about Jude Bellingham.
Yeah.
It's a couple times now. He's redlining it, and there's going to be maturity conversations. All I would say is not completely comparable, but keep an eye on the Dele Alli situation. Obviously, we have more information that gives us horrific insight to his childhood and what happened off the field. But when Dele Alli was at his best, he walked a very fine line. I specifically remember him getting a red card after being named Young Player of the Year, and he almost didn't, like, he took himself out of the awards show because he was so mad at himself for getting the red card. When we're asking these players to kind of downgrade this super incredibly high competition factor that allows them to be these world-class athletes, there's something that there's a teeter-totter effect, right? You take away this, what happens else? The Rudiger thing, he's crossed the line. He's going to be punished significantly. I'm not aware of if it's similar to what happens in England, where if you get a red card, is it just the next 3 games? Can it be like the Paulo Fonseca suspension where he's out for 9 months, but he can still participate in or Europa League? All of those things are still a bit murky, but Rudiger crossed the line. He's always operated in kind of this gray area, which I enjoy as a player, but I do think he, whether it's the Kevin De Bruyne facial fracture or it's moments like this, there's kind of some bullet points, but
there's a lot.
He's one of those absolute leaders. So, Carlo Ancelotti and David, they're probably gone. They're probably going to be, sipping Mai Tais down in Brazil on the beach in preparation for the summer. We'll see where Florentino Perez goes. There's questions about why he didn't strengthen, even when Carvajal goes down in the January window on a loan opportunity instead of running out Lucas Vasquez. The center back perspective, whether you're talking about Militao or you're talking about Alaba, Rudiger, ACL injuries, maybe at the end of their career, it's going to be a very, very interesting next 18 months for Florentino Perez and Real Madrid, and we'll see how it all plays out. But they got to cut the shit. Sorry, Tim. Like it's just it's a lot. It's too much, and I didn't even know. I'm traveling. I get a text from our buddy Marcos, and he's like, "Dude, this game might not be played." And I go, "The game's getting played. You guys are just doing what Real Madrid always does," and that's effectively what we saw.
Well, just on that final bit on the of it. Sorry, Tim. Is that like I was watching WrestleMania last weekend on what did I watch it? Sunday morning. We put it on the TV to see if my 5-year-old wanted to watch it, and she was sort of in and out of it, so we put it on. Because you can get it now on our TV, and it's either that or watch Blippi. Makes me want to vomit blood, so we put that on. So anyway, we put it on, and I always think about wrestling because wrestling is obviously real fake, like the kayfabe thing, right? It's they really do
smash
jump
each
off
other.
things.
Yeah,
They really do get hurt. They really do get injured and all that sort of stuff. But it's a scripted.
Rey Mysterio just got hurt, bro. Rey Mysterio just got hurt.
But as part of a scripted performance, he then got real injured, right? So it's the whole what's real and what's fake. And I just feel like I was watching that, and I was watching this game on Saturday, and I just thought Real Madrid have crossed the line from knowing it's kayfabe, like the kayfabe thing.
It.
Yeah, I think that like they have crossed the line from putting pressure on referees and trying to wind up their own fan base and get favorable decisions their way and all that sort of stuff. I think when you look at Danny Carvajal screaming in the crowd, I think he believes the conspiracy against it, 100%. Yeah. I think when you watch Tony Rudiger throwing ice at the referee, I think he fully believes.
Chucked it too.
Chucked it at him.
What an arm. Yeah, what an arm.
This is a big ban he's got coming, and rightly so. That's because he truly believes the referee was out to get Real Madrid. He's not playing that. I don't think he's faking that. I don't think he's performing that. I don't think he's kayfabing that. I think they really believe it. And this is an inflection moment where I saw Rudiger's apologized on Instagram to try and get his ban reduced. I don't believe him, frankly. But you've got to play the game. I'm sure he's got PR people helping him do this sort of stuff. I mean, I saw the German FA sent a reprimand to Rudiger as well today, which is quite a big thing. World Cup coming up and all that, and he'd be there. So, like, I just think that there's that element of it. But I think someone at Real Madrid, and it won't be because it comes from Florentino Perez, right? But someone at Real Madrid has got to be like, sorry, this is kayfabe. You all know that, right? This is bullshit. And we're doing, sorry, Tim, and we're doing this for performance purposes. Anyway, I don't know if they will. Right, I've done my hero for the week. Give us your hero of the weekend, Dunny.
Who was my hero? I was gonna go. Oh, I went with Eze. Eze's goal. I just think the goal and the celebration are just incredible. That ball coming across is every player's dream at any level where it's on the deck, curling ball. You shape up your body. You're facing the sideline. You create the whip, power placement accuracy. You overpower the goalkeeper. Fantastic goal. Only bettered by his celebration or lack thereof. Like, I've fucking been here. Sorry, Tim. I'm fucking done that. Sorry, Tim. Off. Sorry, Tim. That for me was pretty incredible. I know someone will probably say, "What about Wrexham being promoted?" That's an incredible story. I would say, well, I would say, side note, however manufactured that you think that is, or Hollywood-esque you think that is, they're gonna be in the championship. So I was saying this to Miola, like if you think Josh Sargent or Brendan Aronson or Haji Wrights or Aiden Morris's, Wrexham would be really smart to lean into the U.S. men's national team player that has those type of experience, or the MLS players that want to take that next step that are because twofold. Number one, we had a thing here in the United States where there was a lot of fans that became fans of U.S. fans that became fans of Fulham because of Carlos Bocanegra and Clint Dempsey and Brian McBride and those guys. So they came up with the nickname Full America. Smart. I think you could do something similar with Wrexham.
Wrexham America. It's all there.
But if you're an agent for a player, you're thinking about twofold. Number one, it's the championship. Number two, the commercial power behind everything that is Wrexham here in the States with FX, Ryan Reynolds, Rob McElhenney. I mean, it's, it's a juggernaut. So twofold. Yeah. I think it would be really smart. Just me. What do I know? I just think it'd be really smart to lean into each other, if that makes sense.
No, I do think that's a good shout for Hero of the Weekend. And I think that, like, coming from a sort of English football perspective, I do sort of feel like the focus they have got on them has led to a lot of, I think jealousy is definitely part of it for a lot of the clubs that are sort of down there. I think that's in it. But I also think there's a sense of like, rich foreigners come in and take one club up the leagues is one of those stories that, if it happens to you, is fantastic. If it happens to other clubs, is kind of frustrating. So I think a combination of jealousy and frustration. Plus, you have that element of like our game in England's always being taken away. Pretty much no clubs are owned by English people anymore. There was some investment from Egypt in like Dagenham and Redbridge last week up the road from me, which went up very quickly. Sorry, Tim, maybe. So like,
that's the best saying ever.
So I do sort of think like there's a lot of that, but away from the cynicism of it. Like, I just think about being a Wrexham fan and going to the race course for years, like, and Wrexham were never going to go anywhere. They weren't even the best club who played in England, in Wales. Like, they were the third of the three, being Swansea, Cardiff, and them, and a distant third at that. The race course is a shithole. Sorry, Tim. Like, had not investment in years and years and years and years. The town didn't really have... You wouldn't go to visit Wrexham if you were coming over from America, right?
Yeah.
Now people probably would if they were kind of that way, and they absolutely do. So I just think
it's had the Ted Lasso effect.
Yes,
I mean it's the real version of Ted Lasso. Yeah.
So I get why some fans. I mean, I personally don't care because West Ham, are never going to be at the level of Wrexham, even if Graham Potter stays in charge. We'll never get that relegated. So like, but I do sort of think it's. I just think about people who work in a chip shop. Or run the program stands at Wrexham. They must be like, what the is happening? Sorry, Tim. And I think it's great. I do really think it's great, and I want them to get promoted again. Give me a villain of the weekend.
I went with the Harry Kane suspension against RB Leipzig. So it means that he's missing, and somebody did send this in to us on the shout line. He's not missing his first trophy lift. He's missing his first cheese plate lift.
What?
Because in the Bundesliga, they give you the plate. It's not the trophy.
Yeah, of course.
So he's not going to miss his first trophy.
Captain Germany.
Yeah, there you go. So incoming full kit wanker?
I hope so. He's got to, hasn't he? He's got to.
I mean, so we were having this debate. Like, if you're Alfonso Davies, right, you're probably wearing your warm ups, your pants, and you got a jersey on.
Hmm.
But you're injured. You're on crutches, for Upamecano, any of those guys that are banged up right now. But like for Harry Kane, he finally is winning the title, like the trophy. And back, by the way, he's going to be the first foreigner to win back-to-back scoring titles in his first 2 seasons as well. So, like, does he go full kit? I mean, because you don't want to be like,
mate, 100%.
If you got it right.
If you go to the Bayern Munich Museum near the Allianz, and in there's pictures of all these teams that have won.
You're not going to remember that he was suspended.
No one's going to remember that. You want to be in the
That's
kit.
why.
You want to be like, who's that?
Got to go full John Terry.
Who's the guy in the suit with the jawline? Who's that? And he'd be like, oh, that was Harry Kane, the top scorer. And he'd be like, what? Because he's
Why
30
wasn't he
years
playing?
from now. No one's going to remember us in 30 years.
Yeah.
So, like, definitely. If they invited me on the pitch, I would do it. Oh, whole thing.
Well, because I was thinking about it. Like, he almost has to wear his cleats.
Is he allowed?
Well, he'll be able to go on to the, he can go to the stadium. Yeah. But here's the thing. Skechers. Like, he's the Skechers boot guy. Like,
is he?
Yeah, no, you didn't know that. His boots are Skechers. He left Nike. Yeah, it's a couple years ago. They're shocking. They're just really ugly. But
they're comfortable though. The great shoes to wear on a plane. Just bring us full circle.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Very comfortable. Can I do my normal thing? You know what I'm gonna do. You know what I'm gonna do.
What?
Graham fucking Potter.
Oh God.
Sorry, Tim.
Can't help himself.
No, I can't, and I don't get to do it anywhere else. So I'm doing a minute on this.
So, the look on his face when you guys conceded those 2 goals in 5 minutes.
But like,
shock.
It goes to this ongoing narrative that we keep having the conversation about Amorim, right? Like, I keep hearing when he gets his own players, and we're not going to have the same sort of budget that Man U probably have, but it's like when he gets his own players, he'll be able to turn it around. It's like Arne Slot just won the league with Jurgen Klopp's squad. Vitor Pereira came in with as many squad problems that West Ham have got, if not more, and there's just won 6 in a row. They're looking at finishing top half now, Wolves, because they've won some games of football and no one else is winning consistently. Unai Emery hasn't exactly reinvented the squad at Villa. Watkins was there, McGinn was there, beyond like Morgan Rogers and Pau Torres, who of the new signings have really like excelled. Nobody. Everyone was basically there. So like you can go in, and I'm not asking for Champions League qualification. I'm asking for not losing games when you're winning it in the 89th minute, which they've done 2 weeks in a row. And like the goals West Ham the whole West Ham setup this weekend was just so annoying. Like, and I posted it on Blue Sky. You can check it. I said, what's going to happen is when I found out Fulkrug wasn't starting, I put Fulkrug will come on when they're 2-0 down and come on to try and change the game. It was 1-0 in the end, but like he didn't start Fulkrug, which makes no sense. They're losing at half-time, having been crap in the first half. Fulkrug comes on, and finally, it's Fulkrug, Kudus, and Bowen up front. Obviously, that group works. For 45 minutes, fine. And they look quite good for 45 minutes. They score a couple of goals. They're playing reasonably well because they've got a better squad than Brighton. The front 7 is better than Brighton's. The front 7 is maybe one of the best in the league in terms of like quality. Like, there are squad deficiencies, but not bad enough to finish 17th.
I'm just reading your stream of consciousness right now.
And then just like,
it's amazing.
The goal they conceded in the first half is the goal they keep. It's identical to the Wolves goal a couple of weeks ago. They are not closing players down on the edge of the box. They'll have a shot. So they've already conceded one in this game. They then concede one dropping far, far, far too deep to go 2-2. Kilman can't defend, and he steps away from his man to maybe block the cut back to Dunk and leave Matoma free. Mavropanos doesn't read it. Sufao is not marking the guy at the back post. They're all just asleep, even though they're 10 players in their own box defending it. And then the late goal, again, like, they give a corner away. No one's watching. No one's paying attention. Tadimo's just scratching his ass like usual, doing nothing. They take the corner. No one's noticed it. It's a great strike, but like, he gets the chance to control it, have a touch, have another touch, have another touch, and like, fine. If you hit the top corner from 35 yards, fine. But like, no one has thought he might have a shot here. We should go out. No one does it, and they're almost on like the 6-yard box. And it's like, same as Fulkrug's comments last week. They're not listening. They're not motivated. They don't give a toss. Some of these players. The team don't know how to defend or attack at the same time. They seem to do one or the other, but not both. And he's been there for half a year. And again, I'm not saying. My lizard brain thinks he should be sacked because he's crap, but like my proper brain, that's not like my instinct.
There's two. Which
right?
person are we talking to?
Your more logical brain is like, look, obviously he needs a window and a rebuild and some time and to get rid of the dead wood. Fine, but show me something. Like show me when you're baking this cake, you're going to put sugar in it and not salt. You know?
Hey man, big point on the road down at Bournemouth.
How bad were they? How bad were they? Jeez.
Hey,
Did you watch it?
Oh, yeah, no, I hate watch. I punish myself.
Who's going to last longer, Amorim or Potter next season? That pause is so long. That was such a long pause. I think Amorim November, Potter December.
Amorim has more pressure because of the size and scope of what they're trying to achieve, from stadium to success on the field.
Yeah.
So I would think Amorim goes first. But God, Graham Potter, I thought he made everyone better. I thought that was
not one thing.
Well,
someone said to me, "Oh, he's like, we need a transfer window," and the response was like, "Well, I thought he was a coach first, and someone else did the transfers." So if you're
now it's him and his buddy.
But now it's like, oh no, it's all about the transfers. Like, no,
it's not Timmy's. It's not Timmy's fault anymore.
No.
Yeah.
Anyway, I had more on that, but that's enough. Thank you, Brian Dunseth. Brian Dunseth over there, MLS legend. I'm Tom Rennie. This has been the Week in the Tackle podcast. If you enjoyed the program, like the show, subscribe to the show, subscribe on your friends' phones in their various feeds, subscribe on YouTube as well. Watch it in full. I got a new camera. I'm very high def. It's freaky, if anything. We're back next week. Tim Horsey produced the program. We'll see you then.